Today we're going to go into part 3 of our series about understanding success from God's perspective. Success God's way. Does God care about success? I think we've determined that he does, but success the way he's determined it, not the way the world has determined it. And if you remember the first time we talked about this, we looked at that really, really popular verse. What does it profit a man if he gains the world but loses his soul? And we realize that the verse isn't telling us that we can't gain the world. The verse is telling us that you can gain the world, but if you lose your soul along the way, you failed. And success is truly, ultimately about our soul, our connection with God. And this is the beauty of this concept, that because success is about our soul and our connection with God, there's no such thing as failure, as long as your soul is connected with God. So you can go bankrupt 1,000 times. You can drop out of school 20 times. If your soul is connected with God, you're a success. You can fail according to the earthly standards that are out there, but you can still be a success in God's eyes. Now, I know I'm not telling you to drop out of school, and I'm not telling you not to pay your bills, okay? Those things are important and they need to be done. But don't measure your spiritual success by earthly standards. Last time we looked at the gift, the fruit of the Spirit, as a way of determining if our soul is in the right place, because we're all about soul connection now. That's how we know if we're succeeding. And the fruit of the Spirit is the way we understand, like, yeah, I'm in a good place and I'm moving in the direction of God. It's our measurement for our soul success. Today, we're going to do a case study in success. It's a person that we're going to look at today, and I want to give you his measurables, okay? I'm going to give you his stats. If he had a baseball card, this would be on the back of it. Does anybody even know what baseball cards are anymore? But anyway, so here it is. He came from a royal family. He owned 12,000 horses, 1,400 chariots. He had 700 wives. I don't know if this is a successful stat, but anyway, he had 300 concubines, which are kind of like wives without the commitment, okay? He wrote 3,000 proverbs. He wrote 1,005 songs. He built a temple, and according to this website that I found called wealthresult.com, where they kind of tried to figure out the net worth of different historical figures, this man came in as number one all time with a net worth of $2.1 trillion. His name is King Solomon. He was the son of King David, who most considered the greatest king in Israelite history, maybe until Solomon. And here is, so King Solomon wrote a book. He wrote several books, but he wrote one book called Ecclesiastes. We call it Ecclesiastes in the Bible. And Ecclesiastes is kind of like, if you read it, you get a sense that Solomon maybe is at the end of his life, and he's kind of looking back at everything that he did, everything he accomplished, everything he accumulated. And he has some thoughts about life. And he puts them in this book called Ecclesiastes. And here is what he has to say after looking back at his life, at all his successes. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher, completely meaningless. What do people get for all their hard work under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth never changes. The sun rises and the sun sets, then hurries around to rise again. The wind blows south and then turns north. Around and around it goes, blowing in circles. Rivers run into the sea, but the sea is never full. Then the water returns again to the rivers and flows out again to the sea. Everything is wearisome beyond description. No matter how much we see, we are never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are not content. History merely repeats itself. It has all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Sometimes people say, here is something new, but actually it's old. Nothing is ever truly new. We don't remember what happened in the past, and in future generations, no one will remember what we are doing now. This is the introduction to Ecclesiastes. Does this sound like a man who's been successful all his life? Sounds like he's a failure, but he was a success by certain standards. It sounds like he got everything out of the world, that verse. He gained the world, and as he looks back at everything that he's been able to do, he's regretful of what his life has been. I don't want to be there. I don't ever want to feel this way. I don't think you do either. And by the way, I told you this was the introduction. Let me give you a couple of more doozies from King Solomon, okay? I soon discovered that God has dealt a tragic existence to the human race. Wow. He actually is blaming God for some of this. Like God is the one who gave this existence to us, this awful existence that's meaningless. It's God's fault. Well, that's awful. And here I am as pastor telling you to follow this God that Solomon is talking about. Here's another one. What is wrong cannot be made right. What is missing cannot be recovered. Well, that's awful too. I actually don't agree with him. Because I've had some wrongs made right in my life. I've lost some things and recovered them. So I think, could it be that Solomon's just not seeing things correctly? I don't know, maybe. Maybe I'm not seeing them correctly. Here's another one. The greater my wisdom, the greater my grief. To increase knowledge only increases sorrow. And this is very strange coming from Solomon. Because here's Solomon's story for those of you who don't know it. Solomon's dad was the king. King David passed away and the throne was given to Solomon. And when he's made king, God came to Solomon and said, okay, you're the king now. Ask me for anything and I'll give it to you. And Solomon was like, whoa, what would you have done in that situation? What would you have asked for? I know a few things I would ask for, and none of them were what actual Solomon asked for. They would have been selfish things, right? Like, I can eat whatever I want and stay skinny. Those are the kinds of requests I would make, right? I can spend as much money as I want and the bank account will never go down. Those are the kinds of things I would have asked for. But Solomon said to God, give me wisdom. Give me wisdom so that I could reign well, so I could be a good, just king. And God said to him, this is interesting. He's like, you know what? You asked for a good thing. You didn't ask me for riches. You didn't ask me for power. So I'm going to give you wisdom and I'm going to give you riches and power too. And the classic story that shows that Solomon had wisdom was these two women came to him in the throne room once, and they were all fighting with each other, and there was a baby there. And the story is that they both lived in the same house, and they both had children almost at the same time. One had her baby, and then 3 days later, the other lady had her baby. And one night, one of the moms, tragically, while she was sleeping, rolled over on top of her baby and suffocated her baby. The baby died. And then, so that baby was buried, and then another night came, and the mother who suffocated her baby stole the other lady's baby and claimed it was hers. And then they went to Solomon, and both of these women were fighting, that's my baby. No, that's my baby. No, you killed your baby. No, you killed your baby. And Solomon said, okay, we'll figure this out. Bring me a sword, and I'm going to slice the baby in half, and each of you can have half a baby. And then the mother, the real mother of the baby said, no, don't do that. Let her have the baby. And that's how Solomon knew that was the real mother, because the other mother said, oh yeah, slice the baby in half, that's fine. Wisdom. And here he is saying, the greater my wisdom, the greater my grief. This is strange coming from Solomon. He asked for wisdom, and now he's seeing this as a negative thing. Here's another doozy from Solomon. So I came to hate life because everything done here under the sun is so troubling. Everything is meaningless, like chasing the wind. Can you imagine you have so much success in life that you hate it? Wait a second, that makes no sense. If I was failing at life, then I would hate life. But he's succeeding in life and he's hating it. I don't want to get here either. Look at this one. So I concluded that the dead are better off than the living. But most fortunate of all are those who are not yet born, for they have not seen all the evil that is done under the sun. Some of us feel like this about the earth, about the world. We look at the world and like, oh man, do I want to live here? Young people are asking that question. Do we want to bring kids into this kind of a world? Solomon had that thought way before you did. Look at this one. Then I observed that most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors. But this too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. Shouldn't people be better than this? Like the only reason you want to succeed is because you want to be better than your neighbor over here because he or she has some stuff and you want to have more than them? Last night at the youth conference, Brian and I were there and the kids were just hyped. They were jumping up and down, worshiping. And Brian and I are there like, they got a cool setup here in their sanctuary. I'd love to have lights like this. I'd like to have a space like, look at that stage. It's so big. Look at that drum cage. It's like awesome, right? Us pastors, we do that, you know. We go into other churches and we just crave. I just say, oh, this is so awesome, right? We want to be cool too. We want to have a cool church. And is that what should motivate us to succeed? And this too is a very serious problem, Solomon continues. People leave this world no better off than when they came. All their hard work is for nothing, like working for the wind. So why am I working so hard? If this is going to be the conclusion of everything, why am I working so hard? It doesn't end there. God gives some people great wealth and honor and everything they could ever want, but then he doesn't give them the chance to enjoy these things. They die and someone else, even a stranger, ends up enjoying their wealth. This is meaningless, a sickening tragedy. Everybody's like, man, this is the worst sermon ever. And there are days I feel this way. You know what I'm talking about. You work, you get to the end of the day and you can't even enjoy the fruits of your labor because you're so tired or so stressed. He's not done yet. God created people to be virtuous. Awesome. But they have each turned to follow their own downward spiral. What he's basically saying here is that most people aren't living up to their potential. You could be better, but you're not because you're going down this spiral. Look at this one. In this life, good people are often treated as though they were wicked, and wicked people are often treated as though they were good. This is so meaningless. And we look at the world and we're like, is there any justice here? Why are good people suffering and the bad people thriving? Good question. The fastest runner doesn't always win the race, and the strongest warrior doesn't always win the battle. The wise sometimes go hungry, and the skillful are not necessarily wealthy, and those who are educated don't always lead successful lives. It's all decided by chance, by being in the right place at the right time. Now he's really depressing me. It's all by chance? So I'm either lucky or unlucky? That's what's going to determine my success? It's like nothing I do matters. And here is his conclusion. Everything is meaningless, completely meaningless. Worst TED Talk ever. And all these thoughts by Solomon take me to one question. What's the point? What's the point of any of this? What's the point of this life? What's the point of us coming together here if that's the conclusion of the matter? Is it even worth it to seek success? And I would say yes, if we do it God's way. If we seek it in God's manner, in what God wants for us, in what God thinks is most important. But what's interesting is if you read the whole book of Ecclesiastes, it just sounds like ranting. A man who's struggling and ranting. But in the midst of the ranting, if you look deep enough, you find the jewels that will help us in this matter. You find the points that will take you towards God's success. And I want to share those with you. The first one is this one. Wear fine clothes with a splash of cologne. That's actually in the Bible, yes. This is a funny one. I just wanted to share it with you. Even Solomon knew, if you're going to go for an interview, dress up nice and smell good, okay? Young people, take this advice, do it, okay? But not too much cologne. You don't want to overpower the room. But let's go into some of these deeper reflections. Here's the first one. So I decided there is nothing better than to enjoy food and drink and to find satisfaction in work. Then I realized that these pleasures are from the hand of God. For who can eat or enjoy anything apart from him? Okay, listen to this, because here's what we learn from this little passage here. We have to find pleasure in what God has given us. Find pleasure in the small things in life, in the small opportunities to feast, to connect, to be with people. And I just want to let you know, I love the experience. I love what we do here. I love when the praise team comes up and they sing and we lift hands and we have this corporate, beautiful moment together where we connect with the Holy Spirit and we connect with each other. This is awesome. And I never want it to end. But here is where I'm finding the most satisfaction and the most enjoyment in life. You know when it is? It's when I get to go and sit at your homes. And when Sarah bakes me cookies and we sit and we just hear about what God is doing in their lives. You know, when Sam and Charlotte and I go grab a sandwich, hey, and we just hear about how God is moving, right? When I get to sit with Vontris and hear about how great the church finances are going, and I see that God is blessing us. And I enjoy these small connections that we make because it's in those moments that we're enjoying the best part of life, which is each other. And we need to find pleasure in that. If the only pleasure we're going to find is in how good this thing is going to be, guess what? There's going to be days when somebody's going to hit the wrong button back there and the microphones are going to squeal and it's not going to go perfectly. There's going to be days when I'm going to get up here and preach and I'm going to drop a dud of a sermon. I might be doing that right now. It's this. It's the relationships. It's the moments we get together. It's the game night at the Joneses. It's going and cooking beet pasta over at the Schultz's. It's going for ice cream, right? It's all those small little things that we do together. And God has given us these moments for pleasure and for joy. And we have to find it. Interesting that Solomon at this point, he starts thinking and evaluating the difference between wise people and foolish people. Okay, he makes that comparison. And this is a conclusion he comes to. when he's talking about wise people and foolish people. Both will die. So I said to myself, since I will end up the same as the fool, what's the value of all my wisdom? This is all so meaningless. But here's what we can learn that will help us when it comes to God's success. Don't waste time in comparing things. Don't waste time in comparing whether someone is a wise person or a foolish person, or if someone is in a better place spiritually than you are. Comparison, get this, and I hope this is a mirror in front of your face because it's a mirror in front of mine. Comparison assumes competition. If you're comparing, it's because you're competing. And in the family of God, we don't compete. Well, that's not true. That's actually not true. We do have a battle to fight, but it's not against each other. It's against evil on two fronts. First, well, maybe not first, but one of them is the evil outside of you, the devil, the bad things in the earth. But guess what? There's another one. It's the evil inside of you. You're battling that every day. And that battle is harder because you know how you are. You know how you are. I experienced this last night. I wasn't going to tell this story, but oh well, here I am. So I go to this youth conference, and I'm trying to register my students into the youth conference, and things aren't going well in the registration process. Oh, that's all I'll say about that. Not going to say whose fault it was. It's probably my fault. Okay, let's just put it that way. But what happens when a person who is a planner and a perfectionist and likes everything to happen on time and who grew up in New York goes to a place and is disappointed and things don't start going the way he expected them to? What do you think is happening inside a person like that? Let me tell you. Evil. Bad stuff. And the poor young lady who's just figuring out how this iPad works, what fault does she have in this situation? Nothing. But of course, you want to give her a piece of your mind. And the battle inside is, do I ruin her Jesus moment right now and insert some devil into it? Or do I fight this battle inside of me and do the right thing and smile? I won't tell you what I did. It might be the reason I'm here and not there right now. No, that's not true. And I want you to understand this comparison thing is important. Comparison works both ways. You can compare yourself to someone who's better than you and want to be with them, but you could also compare yourself to someone who you perceive as worse than you and think better of yourself. Both of those are wrong. Because the comparison shouldn't be happening at all. Here's another one. Yet God has made everything beautiful for its own time. This is an important one. I want you to understand, here's what we can learn. There is beauty in your current situation. You might be looking at your situation, this is awful. Everything is going wrong, and I'm telling you, there's beauty in it. Something is happening. Something good is going on. Maybe you haven't seen it yet. Maybe you haven't dug deep enough, but there's something happening in your current awful situation that is beautiful. How many of you have ever watched, those of you who raise children, how many of you ever watched your child try to walk as they're starting to learn? Do you remember those days? Right? And isn't it the cutest thing? Tell me if isn't it the cutest thing when they try and they just lose it and they just fall? Can you imagine if you as a parent would be like, That's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. You trying to walk, how bad of a walker are you right now? There's beauty in the failure. Maybe we need a new definition of success. Success is finding beauty in failure. That when you blow it, when you mess it up, there's still something there to learn, to grow. There's something beautiful that can be extracted from this moment. And Solomon realized that yeah, it's all meaningless, but there's still moments of beauty. And it's a season. And it comes and it goes, but there's always something beautiful. Here's something else that Solomon realized. As you enter the house of God, keep your ears open and your mouth shut. It is better to say nothing than to make a promise and not keep it. Talk is cheap, like daydreams and other useless activities. Fear God instead. And here's what I extract from this moment in his rantings is you have to pay attention when you're in God's presence. Shut up and listen. Be quiet and look. Silence is the key here. We need more silence in our lives. We need more silence in our lives. Make it happen. And I'm struggling with this, honest. And I'm struggling internally. Not that I don't have moments that I could create silence, is that my body craves noise. Is anybody else there? Is anybody the wake up first thing in the morning and grab your phone person? It's okay, admit it. That's me. Oh, I'm the only one. Okay, fine, whatever. Liars. Okay, yes, okay, good. We're seeking the noise. And I want to let you know something, and this is my experience, and I don't know 100% if this is true for everyone, but I think I'm right. You'll find God more in the silence than in the noise. The noise tends to drown out God, not because you can drown him out, it's because we're blocking him with the noise that we choose to have in our lives. And I'm trying, I'm succeeding, and I'm failing. And if you're wanting to create more silence in your life, I just give you this the best advice that someone gave me when I'm trying to do this is start small. If you can only get 1 minute of silence a day, then do 1 minute of silence, but do it consistently. And if you can do 2, and then you'll do 3 and 4, and it'll start growing. Pretty soon you're gonna have that glorious moment of silence where you're gonna shut up and God will be heard. And it is a good thing, Solomon continues, to receive wealth from God and the good health to enjoy it, to enjoy your work and accept your lot in life. This is indeed a gift from God. God keeps such people so busy enjoying life that they take no time to brood over the past. Any brooders in the room? I'm a brooder. There's a lady who hurt me in 2001 that I'm still thinking about. Wasn't my wife, by the way. Some of you are laughing like, oh, Denise. No, it was a lady from my church. She disrespected me once. And you know, men, we cannot be disrespected. Like call me a wimp, call me ugly, call me fat, but don't disrespect me, even though all that is kind of disrespectful. Anyway, I'm still struggling with that moment. But here's what we can learn from what Solomon is saying. Get busy serving God. Get so busy serving God, you don't have time to brood over the past. You don't have time to be mixed up in the drama. You don't have time to deal with the foolishness of people's interpersonal issues. Get plugged in to God's plan for your life so that you can put all that foolishness behind you. Find your purpose. Find out what God's calling you to do. Next week, Tanya's going to teach a spiritual gifts class, 10 o'clock, right here in the conference room. This is your chance to find out what gifts and skills God has given you and how you can put them into practice for his work. And guess what? You start doing God's work, you're going to forget about the ridiculousness that's happening at work. You know, the work that gives you that paycheck. And those crazy people at the water cooler. And you're going to walk in and you're going to walk out and you'll be like, listen, I don't have time for you suckers because I got some Jesus stuff to do over here. I don't have time for you, whatever. Hey, somebody didn't clean out the fridge. I don't care. I'm going to go over here and feed the homeless. Somebody over there is complaining about my boss because they didn't give us enough raises or whatever. I don't have time for that. I'm going to go sing for worship. Get busy doing the work of God. And some of this stuff will disappear from your radar. You're not even going to care anymore. Solomon continues. I like this one. Using a dull axe requires great strength. So sharpen the blade. That's the value of wisdom. It helps you succeed. Now he's starting to see the value again of his wisdom. And this is what I think he's talking about. Seek wisdom over knowledge. What do I mean by that? Here's what I mean. I know a lot of smart people who are dumb. Do you know what I mean by that? They have a lot of skill. They have a lot of knowledge. They put so many facts in their brain. They're like trivia magnets. You ask them anything about anything and they know the answer, but they just are not wise and they make bad decisions and it doesn't move them towards success. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't get knowledge. You do need knowledge. Knowledge can take you to a skill, but only wisdom will get you to God's success in your life. So get your education, get the skills that you need to function in society and to be a good citizen, but seek wisdom because wisdom will lead you to success. I deal with this a lot. Oh boy. This part probably shouldn't go on the video. But so our church lives under the umbrella of a denomination, and denominations are great. They're a certain flavor of God and of theology, but they're also run by policy, right? Because it's such a huge organization and they have to have a lot of paperwork. You should see the policy book. I would bring it here, but it would just depress us and the spirit would leave, I think, because it's just so thick, so big. And every time something new happens, a new policy is made. And it just gets stacked on over and over, kind of like the laws of our country. And well, let's not get political. But the point is, the policies sometimes dictate more than the spirit. And I was sitting with some people from our higher up organization, and I was saying to them, listen, my friends, you guys make these policies, but you make them in a vacuum. And you make them from your offices and your cubicles, and you have no understanding of how, now that you've made this policy, how I'm supposed to implement it here. And it doesn't make sense. It's impossible to do well. And all it does is create more confusion and more havoc. And that to me is knowledge over wisdom. Right? It's facts over reality, right? And we have to function more in wisdom than in knowledge. The knowledge can get us to a certain point. It can give us certain skills. It can teach us certain things. But in the end, the wisdom that comes from the Spirit of God has to rule the day. So seek that. And here is my favorite thing that I learned from Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes, because it comes to the heart of who we are here at the Experience. Two people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. but someone who falls alone is in real trouble. 3 are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. Here's why I love this. Because this is what I take away from what Solomon is saying. Our best chance at success is connection. And he's talking about a 3-pronged connection. And look how beautiful this fits into who we are. You plus God plus us. That's going to lead you to success. That's an unbreakable combination. You connecting with God and connecting with us makes it impossible for you not to succeed. Because as you connect with God and you connect with us and we all seek our purpose, there's nothing that can stop us from doing what God has called us to do. And in chapter 12, verse 13, Solomon gives his final thoughts on his rantings and ravings, on his confusion and his frustration. And he says, fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. What is the commands? Some of us go straight to the 10 commandments, and that's not a bad place to go. But even Jesus simplified the whole thing to 2 things. Love God and love your neighbor. Connect with God and connect with those around you. And if we do that, we are doing what we're called to do. That's our duty. That's our purpose. Love God, love each other. Love God, love your neighbor. So that's the invitation of God today. Success is going to be how good we are at connecting with God and with each other. How good are we placing our soul in the hands of God and placing our faith in the hands of one another and living this reality together? You and God and us moving towards Him and His purposes for our church, for our lives. So I'm inviting you to join us in this journey. This is what we're seeking here at The Experience, to connect on a deeper level with God, to connect on a deeper level with each other, to find out what He's called us to do, and to transform this city in the name of Jesus. You want to be a part of something like that? You can do it today. All you got to do is say, I'm in. I'm in. I want to be part of that 3-braided cord. I'll take the position 1. God takes position 2. The Experience takes position 3. And let's do this. If you're ready to go on this journey with us, I'm going to invite you to make a bold claim, make a bold step. As we sing this song, go ahead and stand up and sing with us and say, yes, I'm in. Make me part of that cord. Make me part of this purpose. Make me part of this calling. I'm here, Lord. Let's go together. You, me, and these people towards your will.